In the last lecture, I had a look at what JSX actually is, and it's so important to understand this. Now, in this lecture, I want to highlight some of the restrictions we face. For example, this class name thing here. JSX clearly looks like HTML, and it should. It should allow us to write HTML-ish code in our JavaScript files. Still, since it is in a JavaScript file, and since it is JavaScript, some words can't be used. Class, for example, which we would use in normal HTML to assign a CSS class, can't be used because it's a reserved word in JavaScript. We already use it here, by the way, to create a new class. This is why we have to use class name. All these elements we can use here, like div and h1, are actually managed or provided by the React library. We are not using the real HTML tags. React is converting them behind the scenes. And React defines the attributes, in quotation marks I should say, we can define on all these elements. And we don't have the class attribute as we have on the regular HTML element. We have the class name attribute here to add a CSS class. As you can see in our final code, this is translated to class though. It's not class name here once it has been rendered. Now, another restriction we face is that when we return something here, let's say we also want to return another heading, we actually can't do this here. Our JSX expression must have one root element. Now, with React 16, this is kind of loosened. And we will see in this course that we can actually return adjacent elements in the end. It is a typical thing and a typical best practice to wrap everything into one root element per component, though this also makes sense since you typically want to style your components and want to add the CSS class, which is responsible for styling, to the root element, as we do here. So typically, you nest everything in one single root element you return. And if you're wondering about these parentheses here, these are simply used so that we can write the HTML. And I'm always saying HTML, but keep in mind it's JSX, it's JavaScript. So that you can return this HTML code nicely structured across multiple lines without receiving errors. This is why we use the parentheses. So with that, I could add a paragraph here where I say this is really working. And let's close it too. Now with that, we see that paragraph here too, and we had a look at some of the restrictions or things to watch out when using JSX. Because again, it isn't HTML, but in most cases, it actually works just like it.